You didn't stumble on this video by accident. You're here because something deep inside you still doesn't make sense. Maybe you once loved someone who made you forget who you were. Maybe you've spent sleepless nights trying to figure out how the person who promised to protect you ended up being the one who made you feel the smallest. And maybe, just maybe, you're now in the very phase where they start to panic, because you finally walked away. In this video, I won't teach you how to get revenge. I won't tell you to be strong. I'm going to show you the one truth they never want you to discover. A narcissist doesn't fear losing you because they love you. They fear losing you because when you disappear, they lose the mirror that lets them pretend they matter. If what I'm saying reflects even a part of your story, subscribe now. Not to make me famous, but so you have a place that doesn't judge. A place where you're understood. And a place where you can finally start breaking free from a system of manipulation you never agreed to be part of. They're always the one saying, "I'm leaving." But strangely enough, they're also the one who panics the most when you finally start walking out that door. At first, they're cold as ice, emotionless tone, distant demeanor. They'll make you feel like you're a burden, a problem, an inconvenience. Your messages are ignored. The way they look at you makes you feel invisible. And your heart, once something they claimed to cherish, now feels like an old, useless object tossed aside. You think to yourself, this must be the end. They clearly don't love me anymore. But then, just a few days later, when you go silent, when you stop explaining, when you start putting yourself back together, they come back. As if possessed. As if your absence suffocated them the moment they lost control. Suddenly, there are texts, apologies, well-timed tears, the promise I'll change, even a marriage proposal despite the fact they once swore they didn't believe in marriage. You're stunned, you're confused, and you start doubting your own emotions. Am I overreacting? Maybe he really does love me, and he's just hurt. But the truth is, this isn't about love, it's about control. A narcissist doesn't love you the way you understand love. They don't love you as a person. They're attached to you the way an addict clings to a substance they use to escape themselves. You're not a partner, you're a source of supply. As long as you keep chasing, keep needing them, keep trying to please them, they feel safe. But for them, safety isn't about connection, it's about complete control. They don't love you. They need you to help maintain the fantasy where they're the good guy in a loving relationship with a loyal partner. When you leave, that fantasy collapses, and they lose the most important thing of all, the mirror that reflects the illusion they've built about themselves. They don't fear losing you because they've lost someone they love. They fear losing their ability to manipulate you. They fear losing the button that, whenever they pressed it, made you cry, panic, apologize. They fear losing the feeling of emotional control over you. That's why every time you show even the smallest sign of independence, a hangout with friends, a weekend trip, a simple no, they feel abandoned, even if no one has actually left yet. Their fear of abandonment isn't like ours. It doesn't come from loneliness or sadness. It comes from pure panic over threatened power. Because if you no longer need them, they no longer know who they are. Have you ever noticed that whenever you're quietly pulling away without making an announcement, without slamming the door, they start lashing out, blaming you, picking fights over nothing? That's because they feel it. Narcissists have an uncanny ability to sense emotional shifts, not to love you better, but to preserve control. Even if you haven't said a single word, even if you're still in the same room, they can feel the supply slipping from their grip. And that's when panic sets in. But the panic rarely looks like fear at first. It often starts with rage, a strange, disproportionate, explosive kind of rage. They start blaming you for everything. They fabricate stories, twist the truth, create confusion just enough to put you back on the defensive so you forget why you were even thinking about leaving in the first place. They do this not because they miss you, but because they're losing emotional leverage. And if rage doesn't work, they flip into the perfect partner role. Suddenly, their eyes are warm again. Their hugs are softer. Their words are everything you've been longing to hear. They might even reference old memories. Remember that time you said you loved this song? like they listened, like they care. But you have to understand this. It's not redemption. It's a tactic. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, when you stop seeking closure, they have nothing left to work with. And what terrifies a narcissist the most isn't your anger, your accusations, or your confrontation. It's your silence. Silence is the one thing they can't manipulate. They can't twist silence. They can't spin it into another story. When you go quiet, when you stop feeding the dynamic, they start losing their orientation. In your silence, you are no longer their puppet. You become a mystery. And narcissists don't do well with mysteries because mysteries make them feel irrelevant, unseen, out of control. And for someone who survives off a bloated ego, that is absolutely unbearable. That's when they begin to hoover, the desperate sucking back tactic. They send midnight texts. They post nostalgic memories. They might even message your friends, trying to find out what you're up to. If the sweet approach doesn't work, they switch gears and attack. They start lying, spreading rumors, telling people, you're the toxic one. You abandoned them for no reason. They tried everything, all of it just to pull you back into your old role, because in their eyes, you've never been a separate, sovereign human being. You are a character in their world, a world where they hold the script and direct every scene. And if you're no longer on stage, the illusion falls apart. Narcissists don't fear you walking away. They fear losing the power to summon you back. And that is when your real freedom begins. When all their tactics stop working, when you go silent, when you no longer react, when you're no longer the emotional vending machine they once controlled, they move to the next step, finding a new supply. Make no mistake, they don't move on because they've forgotten you. They don't jump into a new relationship because they've healed. They do it because they cannot stand being left behind. They need to prove to themselves and to everyone watching that they are still desirable, still in control, still the one who wins. Because in a narcissist's mind, the fact that you left them first shatters the entire illusion they've spent years constructing. I'm the one in control. I'm the one who discards. I'm never the one who gets left. So they act fast. They flaunt the new relationship within days, sometimes even hours of the breakup. They post smiling pictures holding someone else's hand. They write the kind of romantic captions you used to beg for, and they make sure you see it. They want you to hurt. They want you to wonder, what does she have that I didn't? They want you to believe, maybe he really did change. Maybe she deserves him more. But what's the truth? That new person, she's not a reward for his growth. She's a new stage for the same old performance. She's just another version of you not to love, but to use. And if you look closely, you'll start to see something eerily familiar. She's experiencing the same beginning you did. The sweet words, the idolization, the spotlight. And soon, when she loves deeply enough, he'll begin tearing her down, piece by piece. Because that's the cycle he never intends to break. So why is he still watching you? Why is he still lurking on your social media? Why is he still texting your friends, asking how you're doing? Why is he still trying to make sure you see how happy he is now? Because here's the truth, he never really left. His body may be somewhere else, but his mind is still trapped in the one thing he can't undo. You left, and you didn't come back. Nothing wounds a narcissist more than losing control and having no way to reclaim it. You didn't scream. You didn't seek revenge. You just disappeared. And that silent exit is something they can't process or rationalize. So, they craft a new narrative, one where you're the weak one, where you're the toxic one, where you were the problem, and them. They're the loyal, devoted one who was betrayed. They say it to the new partner. They say it to mutual friends. They even say it to themselves, because if they don't, they're left face to face with a horrifying truth. They lost someone who stopped being afraid of them. And for a narcissist, that truth is enough to shatter their entire fragile identity. There's something most people don't understand. Narcissists don't move on. They transfer. And those are two very different things. They don't sit down to feel the loss. They don't mourn, don't reflect. and certainly don't take responsibility. Instead, they run not toward love, but toward distraction, toward illusion, toward damage control. And in that rush, the new partner becomes nothing more than a prop, a stage, a revised script. They flaunt the new relationship like a trophy. See, I'm still desirable, still wanted. She's proof I wasn't the problem. But in reality, what they're desperately doing is trying to plug the massive hole you left behind not in their heart, but in their ego. Because when you walked away without looking back, you didn't just leave the relationship. You walked out of the fantasy they built. You became living proof of the one thing they fear most, that their charm has limits, that their control has boundaries, that someone could see through the mask and leave anyway. And for someone who survives on the illusion of control, that's not heartbreak, it's humiliation. So they do what they know best. They don't heal. They replace. But here's the problem. They can't erase you. No matter how many filtered photos they post, how many new lovers they collect, how many times they retell the story with themselves as the victim, you remain the one thing they can't get rid of. Because deep down, they still remember. The moment you started seeing through the lies, the moment you stopped reacting, the look in your eyes when you stopped being afraid. And that memory, that shift haunts them more than they'll ever admit. They're still lurking on your social media. They're still checking in with mutual friends, not because they miss you, but because they need to know you're not thriving without them. Because if you are, if you're actually living, healing, smiling without their presence, then the entire story they told themselves collapses. They once believed you couldn't live without them. They were certain you'd come back, apologize, beg for another chance. They were convinced you'd wait. But you didn't. You didn't beg. You didn't return. And that, more than anything, is what they can't handle. So they start rewriting. They craft a new narrative where you are the weak one. You were ungrateful. You were the quitter. And they, the misunderstood, loyal, devoted partner who gave everything, just got burned. They tell this version to the new partner. They tell it to your mutual friends. And most of all, they repeat it to themselves. Because if they don't, they'd have to face a terrifying truth. They lost someone who finally stopped fearing them. And to a narcissist, that is ego death. Because they didn't just lose you. They lost control. They lost the script. They lost the role of the superior one in the dynamic. And even if the new partner is more compliant, more smitten, more eager to please, she's still not you. Because you were the one who once loved deeply. You gave, endured, stayed far longer than you should have. But in the end, you walked away. And that sets you apart. You're not just another supply. You're the script breaker. The proof that their manipulation has an expiration date. The evidence that they don't control everything forever. And yet, here's the cruel irony. Even though they're publicly holding hands with someone new, even though they seem to be flaunting their happiness across social media, even though they act like they've completely moved on, there's one thing that never changes. They will never accept that you have moved on, too. To them, your love was never something to honor. It was a possession. You were never a free person with the right to choose love again. You were an asset, something they still believed belonged to them, even after they discarded you. The moment there's even a rumor that you might be seeing someone else or worse, a photo with someone of the opposite sex, they lose their mind. And here's the twisted part. It's not about love. It's about ego injury. Because in their distorted view of reality, you don't have the right to move on without them. You don't have the right to be loved again. You don't have the right to be happy outside of their orbit. You don't get to build a life they can't control. When they see you with someone new, they feel betrayed. Even if they were the ones who betrayed you. They feel offended, even if you never intended to hurt them. They accuse you of moving on too fast, even though they paraded a new partner around weeks ago. This contradiction isn't random, it's intentional. They don't want fairness. They want one-way power. They can hurt you. They can replace you. They can fall in love again publicly, proudly. But you're not allowed to do the same. Because if you have someone new, it means you no longer crave them. And if you no longer crave them, You're no longer under their control, and if they can't control you, they're nothing. Anyone who's ever been in a relationship like this knows the moment you change your profile picture. Just one photo with someone who might not even be a romantic partner, and suddenly, here come the messages. You've changed. I never thought you were that kind of person. I guess I didn't really know you after all. None of these words are about missing you. They're about not being able to own you anymore. They will twist everything. They'll call you the betrayer even if they cheated first. They'll say you have no self-respect even if they spent years tearing you down. They'll smear you to others, telling the new supply that you were unstable, manipulative, clingy, because they simply cannot stand the idea that you might be thriving without them. To the narcissist, your existence only holds value if you're still hurting over them, still waiting, still reaching for their shadow. But if you're in someone else's arms, if you're smiling next to someone who listens, who respects, who actually shows up for you, they'll scream even if only internally. And when love bombing fails, they'll switch to attack mode. They might message your new partner, spinning lies and half-truths. They might start rumors to damage your reputation. They might pretend to be concerned just to sabotage you from within. They might stir doubt and drama to divide you and your new relationship. Because it's not enough for you to feel pain. They want you back, not for love, but to restore their power. And if you don't come back, if you remain calm, silent, and grounded in your healing, they will hate you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you reclaimed yourself. If you've ever been in this situation, let me say this clearly. You are not cruel. You are not selfish. You are not emotionless. You are simply doing the one thing they were never brave enough to do. Leaving the lie to find the truth of who you are. And that is something a narcissist will never forgive. And one thing you must mentally prepare for if you decide to leave a narcissist, the smear campaign. Not if, but when. Not maybe they'll do it, but they absolutely will. The moment you walk away, especially if you do it in silence, with no reaction, no begging, they'll lose it. Not just because you left them, but because you stripped them of their final privileged control over the narrative. And in order to reclaim that control, they'll do whatever it takes to rewrite history. It doesn't matter how much you once loved them. It doesn't matter how many times you forgave, how long you endured, or how deeply you suffered. All of it vanishes in the story they're about to tell. In their version, you're the betrayer, you're the disloyal one, you're the unstable, toxic, ungrateful one. They'll wipe away all of their own wrongdoing by dumping the blame entirely onto you. And the most painful part, they'll tell the story convincingly, because they've been rehearsing it their entire life. They know how to choose their words. They know how to cry on cue. They know how to make people believe that they are the real victim. They'll cry while telling their new partner about you. They'll say, I loved her so much, but she was just too cold. I only wanted what was best for her, but she always pushed me away. I tried to make things right, but she never gave me a chance. And just like that, you, the one who tried, the one who sacrificed, the one who hurt so deeply, you become the villain in your own story. Their new partner will believe it. Mutual friends might believe it. Their family might believe it. And sometimes even you will start to doubt yourself. Was I too harsh? Maybe I really was too cold. What if he really was just hurting? No, you are not wrong. You are the victim of a highly calculated emotional manipulation. The narcissist didn't just manipulate your emotions while you were together. They're now manipulating how others perceive you after the relationship ends. It's part of their image repair strategy, because if they don't repaint the truth quickly, the truth will expose itself. And the truth is this: they couldn't keep you. Not because you changed, not because you stopped caring, but because you woke up. So now, they need to turn you into the bad guy so they can justify why someone like them had to suffer through someone like you. They can't accept that you walked away because you finally recognized your own worth. So please know this. The smear campaign will come. The lies will come. The suspicious looks from others, they will come. But you must hold your ground. Let them talk. Let them tell their version. Let them perform for anyone still willing to watch. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to explain yourself to those who choose to believe the fiction. You just need to keep living in your truth. And those who are wise, who are perceptive, who see beyond the mask, they'll know exactly who is who. In the end, there is one thing you must make sure of with every fiber of your heart and clarity of your mind. This departure must be yours, not to make a statement, not to make them miss you, not to get them to finally see your worth, not as some emotional bargain, but because you are finally ready to return to yourself. If you leave with anger in your heart, still hoping they'll wake up, that they'll suddenly change and come back apologizing, then you're still chained to them. You're still living your life in reaction to their behavior. You're still playing a role in their script. But if you walk away quietly, no threats, no drama, no need for closure, that's when you touch true freedom. You don't need to slam the door. You just need to never turn around. You don't need to send a final message. You just need to stop writing about them in your heart. You don't need to win their story, because you've begun writing a new one and they're no longer the main character. You don't need revenge. What you need is peace. And peace doesn't come from seeing them hurt. It comes from not needing to know whether they hurt at all. Because now, you understand the person who truly needs your care, your forgiveness, your compassion is you. You were the one who forgave too much, who shrank too often, who sacrificed pieces of yourself just to keep a connection alive that never truly saw you. Now, you no longer need to blame them, not because they weren't wrong, but because they are no longer relevant enough to blame. Blame is still a form of attachment. Regret is still a form of holding on. But silence, clarity, and detachment, that is the real severance. Leaving isn't an act of rebellion. It is a rite of rebirth. You are no longer the person who cried herself to sleep over unanswered messages. No longer the one who lived on the edge of someone else's attention. No longer the one who kept asking, "Why do they treat me like this?" Now, you don't need that answer anymore. You don't need them to change for you to feel worthy. You don't need anyone else to validate your truth. Because you finally see yourself, and when you see yourself without distortion, without their voice in your head, you begin to love yourself in ways you once only begged from others. You're not running. You're not retaliating. You're simply choosing to stop living in a place that was never home. And the strange thing is, the moment you let go of the role, the storyline, and the pain, you feel lighter. No more rage. No more hoping they'll get it. No more wishing for karma to show up on your behalf. No more craving one last conversation to finally explain everything. Because the deepest form of healing is when you no longer feel the need to speak. Not because you're out of words, but because you have nothing left to prove. You didn't leave because you were weak. You didn't leave because you gave up. You left because you realized staying meant abandoning yourself. And when you walk away from someone who only ever needed you as a reflection of themselves, you are not the one who lost. You are the only one brave enough to stop performing. No one sees the battles you fought behind closed doors. No one hears the silent negotiations you made with your own soul. But you do. You lived it. You outgrew it. And now you are being reborn from the very thing that once tried to break you. There is no ending quite as painful as realizing the person you love will never change. But there is no beginning more powerful than finally believing that you deserve better. And one day, you'll wake up, and you won't think about them anymore. No more tightness in your chest every time a notification goes off. No more bracing yourself for an outburst that comes out of nowhere. No more torment over a question that never got answered. Was I ever enough? Instead, you'll feel peace, stillness, safety, calm. You won't feel the need to prove anything anymore. You won't need to explain your story to be understood. You understand. And that's enough. And when you look back, you won't see yourself in that version of you who once begged for love, who endured pain just to stay, who believed that if you were just good enough, everything would change. No. Now, you are the person who no longer needs anyone to change in order to know your worth. You don't carry regret. You don't carry bitterness. You don't carry revenge. Because the most precious thing you reclaimed wasn't justice. It wasn't validation. It was yourself. You took back your time. You took back your heart. You took back the light in your eyes that had once faded into despair. And from that you began again, not to replace the old love with a new one, but to love yourself in the way they never could. You learned how to smile for no reason. You walked forward without needing permission. You listened to your own heart without waiting for applause from anyone else. You no longer wait for the day they regret losing you, because you know now the one who truly lost wasn't you. You didn't lose someone who loved you. You lost the illusion that you were ever truly loved by them. And you no longer need them to recognize your worth, because you already have. If someone is watching this video and still feels stuck, still missing them, still doubting themselves, I want you to know one thing. Loving the wrong person doesn't make you weak. Leaving them even when your heart still trembled makes you powerful. Not everyone is strong enough to do that. Many people stay. Many people keep enduring, keep repeating the same cycle. But you didn't. You said enough. And more importantly, you meant it. So be proud. Not just because you left, but because you didn't forget who you are. The life ahead of you isn't about running from the past. It's about building a future where you never have to ask for permission to feel peace. I don't know who you are, or where you're from, or what you've been through, but if you've made it this far, it means you're still fighting. And sometimes, that alone is proof that you've never really fallen. So keep going. It's okay to move slowly. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to shake, as long as you don't go back. As long as you don't abandon yourself. As long as you remember this. You are worthy of love, but first and forever, by your own.